Picture this. You're scrolling Instagram on a Tuesday night and you see it. A guy you went to high school with. He's standing next to a brand new BMW. Caption says, blessed. You tap through his profile, nice apartment, fancy dinners, a watch that probably costs more than your monthly rent. And somewhere in the back of your brain, a little voice goes, this guy figured it out. I'm behind. Here's the thing. You're not behind. And that guy, he might be one missed paycheck away from a crisis. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm saying it because there is a fundamental lie baked into American consumer culture, and it is costing millions of people their actual financial future. The lie is this, that expensive things are proof of wealth, that if you have a nice car, a nice house, a nice wardrobe, you've made it. You haven't. And today I'm going to show you exactly why, with real numbers, real psychology, and a framework that will completely change how you think about money. Let's start with a number that should bother you. As of 2025, 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, according to a report analyzed by Investopedia, 67%. That is not a fringe problem. That is the majority of the country. And yet, if you walk through any major American city, you will see luxury cars, designer outfits, and the unmistakable aesthetic of prosperity. So how is it possible that most people are financially fragile while the country looks so wealthy? The answer is credit, but we'll get to that. First, I need to give you the single most important equation in personal finance. It is embarrassingly simple, and almost nobody uses it to actually evaluate their financial health. Net worth equals assets minus liabilities. That's it. What you own minus what you owe. That number, not your salary, not your car, not your apartment, is the true measure of your financial position. And the moment you start using it, everything starts to look different. Let's take a house. You buy a $500,000 home. You feel like you own a $500,000 asset, but you put 5% down, so your mortgage is $475,000. Your actual equity, the slice of that asset you genuinely own, is $25,000. You don't have a $500,000 asset. You have a $25,000 stake in an asset with a $475,000 obligation attached to it. And on top of that, you're paying property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Financial planners typically estimate 1 to 2% of a home's value per year in upkeep costs alone, meaning a $500,000 home could cost you $5,000 to $10,000 a year before you touch the mortgage. Now, here's what most people don't realize. A house can absolutely build wealth over time, but for the years you're living in it, paying it down and maintaining it, it is not generating income for you. It is a stored value, and stored value that costs you thousands of dollars annually to hold is very, very different from money that's actually working. Compare that to $50,000 quietly sitting in a diversified index fund. Not impressive, can't post it on Instagram, but the S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10.3% annual returns over the last 30 years according to historical data. That $50,000 doubles, compounds, reinvests, and keeps growing without you lifting a finger. That is what productive wealth actually looks like. But okay, let's talk about the big one. The thing that is bleeding American households dry while making them look successful. The car. Now look, I'm not here to tell you not to have a car. This is America. You need a car. But here is where the psychology gets genuinely dangerous. The average new car loses about 20% of its value in the first year of ownership, according to Carfax. By year 5, it's lost roughly 60% of its original value, according to Kelley Blue Book data. So you buy a $45,000 car. In 5 years, it's worth around $18,000. That's a $27,000 loss just from depreciation, before you paid a single dollar in interest, insurance, or maintenance. And then there's the loan. The average auto loan balance in America hit $24,297 in 2024, according to Experian, with average monthly payments of $662. For what? To get from point A to point B in a vehicle that is actively losing value every single day it sits in your driveway. Here's what I want you to understand. A car is not an asset in any meaningful financial sense. It does not generate income. It does not appreciate. It costs you money to own, insure, finance, and maintain. Calling it an asset because it has a dollar value is like calling a gym membership an investment because it improves your health. Technically, maybe, but that's not how money works. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but people buy nice cars because they can afford it. That's what success looks like. And this is exactly where we need to get into the psychology, because this belief is not random. It was engineered. In 1899, yes, 1899, an economist named Thorstein Veblen published a book called The Theory of the Leisure Class, and he coined a term that explains almost all of modern consumer behavior: conspicuous consumption. The idea was simple. Wealthy people didn't just buy things for their utility. They bought them to signal their status to others. The expensive carriage, the fine clothing, the elaborate house, all of it was a public broadcast of economic power. But here's what Veblen also said, and this is the part we forget. The middle class copies the upper class. That's the whole mechanism. People look upward, see the lifestyle of people above them on the social ladder, and spend to imitate it, whether or not they can afford it. Veblen called it invidious comparison. We now call it keeping up with the Joneses, and the modern financial system has made this catastrophically easy to do on borrowed money. As of Q3 2025, the average American credit card holder carries $6,523 in credit card debt, according to TransUnion data. Americans collectively owe $1.28 trillion in credit card debt as of Q4 2025. That's not mortgage debt. That's not student loan debt. That's $1.28 trillion owed on things people already consumed. Dinners, clothes, electronics, stuff that is already gone. Think about what that means. Millions of people are paying 20, 22, even 28% annual interest on purchases they made months or years ago. You're not just spending money you don't have. You're renting money from a bank to buy things that have already lost their value and paying a premium for the privilege. This is where it gets interesting, because the people who actually understand wealth are doing the exact opposite of what gets celebrated on social media. Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent years researching actual millionaires in America for their landmark book, The Millionaire Next Door, published in 1996. And what they found completely destroyed the cultural image of what wealthy people look like. Most American millionaires drove used domestic cars. They lived in modest neighborhoods. They wore ordinary clothes. They did not look rich. Meanwhile, the people living in the expensive zip codes, the luxury cars, the designer brands, the sprawling homes were often the most financially stretched. High income, high spending, minimal savings. Stanley and Danko had a name for these people: UAWs, under-accumulators of wealth. And they found that UAWs were disproportionately concentrated in high-status professions, doctors, lawyers, executives, precisely because those professions carry enormous social pressure to live up to their income. The real wealth builders were called PAWs, prodigious accumulators of wealth. A PAW has roughly twice the expected net worth for their age and income level. A UAW has about half. That means in the same income bracket, one person could have 4 times the wealth of another, purely based on their relationship with spending and signaling. The formula Stanley and Danko gave for expected net worth is multiply your age by your pre-tax annual income, then divide by 10. If you're 40 years old making $80,000 a year, your expected net worth is $320,000. If you have significantly more than that, you're a PAW. If you have significantly less, especially if that income has been going toward a lifestyle, you're a UAW. I want you to be honest with yourself about which one you currently are. Now let's run the math, because this is where it really hits. Take 2 people, both earn $80,000 a year. Same city, same age, same starting point. Person 1, call him Tyler, lives the life. He leases a $45,000 car. His rent in a nice building runs $2,800 a month. He eats out, travels when he can, buys the new iPhone every cycle. He saves maybe $200 or $300 a month. His Instagram looks great, Person 2, call her Maya, drives a 4-year-old Honda she bought used. Her apartment is $1,400 a month. She cooks most nights. She consistently puts $1,500 a month into a low-cost index fund. 20 years later, same salary, same starting point. Using the S&P 500's historical 20-year average return of about 10.4%, Maya's consistent $1,500 monthly contributions grow to approximately $1.15 million. Tyler, with his $200 to $300 monthly savings, has accumulated somewhere around $150,000 to $175,000, plus a closet full of things he can't sell for what he paid. Same income, same time, a $1 million difference in outcome, entirely explained by how they chose to deploy their money. Here's the thing about Tyler's situation that most people don't talk about. It's not just that he has less money, it's that he has less freedom. Tyler needs his next paycheck. If he loses his job, he's in serious trouble within weeks. He has no buffer, he has no options. He is financially fragile no matter how good his life looks from the outside. And in an economy where nearly 24% of all U.S. households are spending more than 95% of their income on basic necessities, that fragility is not theoretical. It's a crisis waiting for a trigger. Now, you might be thinking, but what about the house? Isn't building home equity wealth? And yes, over a long time horizon in a stable market, home ownership can absolutely contribute to net worth. The median net worth of American homeowners is dramatically higher than renters, but the key word is equity, not ownership. A house you can barely afford in a market you're not sure about, bought at the top of your budget to be in the right neighborhood, that's not a wealth strategy. That's a stress machine with a mortgage attached. The real question to ask about any purchase is, does this put money into my pocket or does it take money out? A rental property that generates cash flow puts money in. A luxury primary residence takes money out. Mortgage, taxes, maintenance, insurance, while storing some value that you can only access when you sell. An index fund puts money in through compounding returns. A $70,000 truck depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot and costs you every month after that. Once you start asking that question obsessively, your whole relationship with money changes. And then there's the social piece, which is honestly the hardest to break. Because the reason people buy expensive things isn't stupidity, it's deeply human. Research in behavioral economics confirms that people's reported happiness tracks their relative income, how they're doing compared to others, more than their absolute income. We're wired to care about status and social standing. It's not a character flaw, it's how we evolved. But here's the brutal reality. The audience you're performing for isn't watching as closely as you think. Most people are too absorbed in their own financial anxiety to be genuinely impressed by yours for more than about 10 seconds. The car gets you a moment of admiration. The financial freedom that comes from not buying the car pays off for decades. The median American net worth as of 2024 sits at just $124,041, according to UBS data. The average is much higher, over $620,000, but averages in America are dragged upward by extreme wealth concentration at the top. By the end of 2024, the top 10% of households held over 67% of all national wealth, while the bottom 50% held just 2.5%. The wealth gap in this country is not closing, and a significant part of why it isn't closing is that the people who could be building wealth are instead financing the appearance of it. So what do you actually do? Start by calculating your net worth right now. Not your income, not your car's value, not your apartment, actual assets minus actual liabilities. That number is your financial truth. Look at it clearly, then start measuring your savings rate, the percentage of your income that goes toward building equity or investing. Not paying rent, not car payments, not subscription services, actually building. Because your savings rate is the single most powerful variable in long-term wealth creation, and it has almost nothing to do with how much you earn. A person making $60,000 and saving 25% of it is building wealth faster than someone making $150,000 and saving 5%. Then make your money productive, not parked in things, but working, index funds, real assets that generate income, businesses, anything that compounds over time. The magic of compounding is not complicated. It just requires patience and consistency, and it rewards patience extraordinarily. The S&P 500 has returned an average of roughly 10.4% per year over the past 20 years. Money that is invested and left alone becomes genuinely life-changing over 2 decades. Money tied up in depreciating objects just disappears. And finally, give yourself permission to stop performing wealth for people who are probably performing it right back at you. The most financially powerful people in America often look like the least impressive ones in the room. That is not an accident. It's a strategy. Real wealth is not a car lease payment. It is not a luxury apartment you can barely afford. It is not a watch that costs more than most people's emergency funds. Real wealth is options. The freedom to walk away from a bad situation, to handle an emergency without panic, to retire when you want to say no to things that don't serve you. None of that photographs well, none of it goes on Instagram, but it is what financial security actually feels like from the inside. The next time you see someone in an expensive car, resist the automatic assumption. And the next time you feel the pull to buy something to signal something about yourself, ask one honest question. Is this building my life, or is this just the costume? Because the richest person in the room is usually not the one you'd guess. And one day, if you play this right, that person will be you. If this made you see money differently, please share it. Someone in your life needs to hear it. Subscribe for more.